I did not expect to be shooting a Nerd Files episode on a boot binding system, but here we are. This thing is really cool. This new SkateX boot and binding from Madshus and Rottefella has been in development for quite a while, but it kind of got out 10 days ago, a week ago. Some biathletes were testing it in Norway and they used it in a domestic race. The press was there. They had really good results. They might have been first and second in the race or something, and all of a sudden it was out. It was on social media. It was all over the place. But there's a big backstory to this, and I want to sort of fill in what the product is, what some of the development story is, and what my impressions of it are. So we got to go back a while, back to 2012, spring of 2012. Noah Hoffman was working with Madshus, and he has some really specific demands based on some screwed up feet. And they were building this boot for him, this Shockwave boot. It's a low cuff based on speed skating technology. Low cuff as in cuffless, actually. It's just sort of a structural carbon boot that was molded to his foot. And Noah and I both had to sign non-disclosure agreements with Madshus in order to work with this boot. It was a cool project, but what happened there was because of the non-disclosure agreements, we had access to additional information, and it came to my attention that they were working on a system to move the pivot of the boot underneath the foot further, and that's what this is. So let's back way up, back into the dark ages of boot development as things moved from a 3-pin binding to Adidas 38, the clip, and then the original SNS binding with a metal bail clip that went off the front and a flexor in the binding. When Rottefella came out with a new Nordic norm in 1985, that's almost 40 years ago, it changed everything permanently. That was the first binding system that was light and sensible enough. We won't talk about Adidas SDS and the look binding and all that other crazy stuff that was going on at the time, but that N&N binding, when it came out, redefined bindings, and is basically what we've been skiing on ever since. It was a bar on the front of the boot. You all know it. You all know what it's like. It was this, a bar that the boot can pivot around. Changed everything forever. And it's been 40 years, and we're basically skiing on the same thing. At the time, I remember Neil Quinn, who was the owner of West Hill Shop, speculating that in time, that pivot point would move under the foot, more like a cycling shoe, to put the fulcrum closer to the metatarsal head where you deliver power through your foot. It made a ton of sense, and everyone sort of sagely agreed that that would be the future. Unfortunately, it's a hard problem to solve. People worked on it back in the early to mid 2000s. This guy, Michael Ostberg, Swedish guy, was a World Cup sprinter, and he was using clap skate boots, basically speed skate boots, with a special mechanism that mounted to the ski. He actually filed a patent. I found it this morning in 2004 for a clap skate binding system. And then there was a Go Faster skate boot produced by an Italian company, a speed skating and inline company that tried to produce a system in around 2007, I guess. But these things were all stacked up so high. To get a mechanism that allows the boot to pivot further back under the foot, they were having to stack things up, and things were really ungainly. They were sketchy to ski on. The power transmission was amazing, but they made the whole thing very awkward, and they just didn't take off. They were never going to succeed. Engineering the solution to bring this closer to the platform and make it into something usable was a real job, and it took a long time. When you consider that we first heard about it over 10 years ago, this is remarkable. It kind of seemed to be dormant for a little while, but then post-COVID, when I showed up back in Norway, it was apparent that it was alive again. I saw some prototypes that were essentially this, and I got pretty excited. Why? What's so exciting about this? Let me get rid of this ski. Okay, so what's exciting about this is that as you push off the ski and you extend your lower leg, all previous systems with the pivot up front here would load the front of the ski too much. There's no way for the boot to express power into the ski while it's pivoting in this system. It's like you're on point. You're way too far up on the toe, and the loading position goes so far forward that the ski tends to pitch in and dive. So functionally, when you're skating on these, you tend to have a little flex in the boot, and you're pushing through your forefoot if you're toeing off at all. And then at the very end, as you release, there's a little snap and the ski returns. The cool thing about SkateX is that you can really actively push and rock the toe over the pivot point, which is back under here, and the ski accelerates throughout. So the position of the pivot is considerably further back. And what I found skiing on this was that I really want to run the binding further forward. Conveniently, this binding includes a move system, so you can change it on the fly. I think it's more for patent protection than anything else. The move system has a patent that lasts for quite a long time, so Rottefella is protected putting that on there, but it's really functional as well. In this case, it locks the bail clip and allows you to move the binding. The expectation has been that this would be subject to a slow launch because there's a learning curve to use it. It's a pretty different feeling, and the Madshus, at least, was pretty sure that racers would take a while to get accustomed to it. I don't think that's the case. I skied it this weekend for the first time. I've been really anticipating it. I need to ski high and forward because of a knee injury that doesn't really allow me to sit back and load through my quad or across my patella. So I kind of need to be up and forward a little bit to create power on the ski. And boy, does this thing put me in a good position. Unfortunately, I only have one boot. It's the left boot, and I've got a bad right leg, so I really need both. But I'm so excited about this. What I found was that I would adopt it immediately. I have a little bit of video of Luke Rizzio skiing around on it. It's hard to get good video of this, but I'll try to put a clip in here so you can see the boot in action. I'm ready to go on this. I feel that the ski is super precise underfoot. The ski feels lighter underfoot. The return after finishing the push is incredibly precise, and the power application is seamless. You can get way up and forward, and the ski just accelerates. As I said, I find myself moving the binding forward, so my foot position on the ski is further forward than it is on the old system. On the old system, if I move the binding way forward, there's positives and negatives, but usually the ski starts to pitch in and slow down too much under active power application, and it doesn't work that well. And I think it's because as you start to pressure that pivot when it's at your toe, you put too much force up in here, whereas this keeps the force really in that ideal position. And boy, the ability to push through this is awesome. Edge control is fantastic. I engaged the edge earlier, and the precision of the edge and the control of the ski is at a new level. It also allows them to build a stiffer sole because you don't depend on flexing your forefoot as much, which keeps your foot remarkably relaxed. It's also worth noting that this boot from Madshus is one of the first to come out of a new project. They have relocated their entire boot division to the Del Bella factory in Italy, and they've got new people working in there, and this is a really friendly boot. It feels great on your foot. Everyone who tried it on this past weekend agreed with that. We're going to take a quick look at the function. The bail clip is here, and it's secured by the move thing. So you twist the knob just a little bit, push this up, and off it comes. So there's your binding. The binding mounts and unmounts from any NIS plate on any ski. And if I can do it, one more click back. There you go. The binding is about 12 grams lighter than a standard accelerator, even though it's got that move system in it. So it's a lighter binding, really refined. Rottefella has done great work coming up with this. Luke mentioned that he would like a little different bumper geometry. And if I can pull it out, the bumper is replaceable, and they can change the geometry and the durometer, which will really be a point of personal preference to get the feeling that you want out of the system, but it's not a difficult thing to adjust and change. And then this little bit of plastic here sits into the molding of any NIS plate, which means all your existing skis remain functional. I expected that we were going to want different ski characteristics, and the one thing I can say is I feel capable of skiing a stiffer camber because I feel like I'm in a more powerful position over the ski. Otherwise, a good ski is a good ski. Doesn't seem to make that big a difference whether you're on the old boot or the new boot. The boot itself has like a bicycle style cleat. I was hopeful that they were going to make a cleat that would be swappable with the old system, but it sounds from Martin Berg, who's the product manager at Madshus, it sounds like this boot is going to be dedicated to the SkateX system. But what you can do is move this pivot on the boot at least several millimeters in either direction, which is also very cool. This boot's a little bit too big for me. This is a 42. We had skiers with 40 up to 43.5, and I usually take a 40.5 all skiing in this boot with really good positive feedback. Even if it wasn't right, the boot feels very good. Quite a minimalist boot, but one of the more comfortable ones I put my foot in. What can I say? This is real innovation. It's unfortunate that it comes so soon after the whole industry finally sort of settled on a system. But I think this will be adopted because I think it's straight up better. It's a better solution. And so often we see innovation that's surrounding patent protection concerns and innovation for the sake of profitability. This is not that. Incidentally, this boot is going to be priced pretty much in line with other top level, say Redline level products, but the binding itself is going to be pretty expensive. And it's an elegant object. They've done a good job. I always object to the cost of bindings. In this instance, having seen a couple of earlier prototypes and recognized some of the engineering concerns, I think Rottefella has done a really tremendous job creating this binding. And while it's going to be expensive, it's going to be worthwhile. It's not difficult to swap. And I think this is the future of skating. I honestly believe that this is going to be adopted by top skiers very rapidly. That's my expectation.
New boot binding system from Madshus. Double thumbs up. Feels light, feels fast, and I'm not sure what I would change. The move binding is pretty awesome too. It's nice to be able to have the positioning forward and back, and actually I really like it forward today on this new setup. It feels excellent.